Welcome to this short video on the new endpoint protection for Windows 10 on Microsoft 365. This feature was introduced during Ignite, and it kind of looks a bit the same to Windows information protection. It's not. There's a couple of differences, and in this video I just want to show you how this functionality works and how we can configure it. So, well, let's get started. One of the first things you'll need to know about the new endpoint protection and DLP for Microsoft 365 is the licensing bit. You will need either the Microsoft 365 E5 compliance license or any other relevant compliance add-on license to really make use of this functionality. There's some other drawbacks, if you will, as well. Even if you have, for example, in my case, Office 365 E5 and EMS E5, that really isn't enough. The license is really related to Microsoft 365 E5 compliance, so take that into account. Another thing to take into account is that the devices you want to use for your DLP need to be either hybrid, joined to Azure AD, or joined to Azure AD. So that's another thing to take into consideration. So without further ado, let's take a look at how those DLP settings work and how we can configure them. And let's start with how it looks from a user's perspective. Okay, let's see how this works. Over here I've got my Windows 10 desktop. This is a machine which has been onboarded to Microsoft Defender ATP and Microsoft 365 Endpoint DLP. So let's see just how this works. Perhaps you've seen the Ignite videos as well. One thing I did notice for my demo is that I didn't get all those cool little icons, which, well, is unfortunate, but they'll probably be there in the end. Okay, let's just show you something. Over here I've got a very simple Excel sheet. It's got some example credit card information, and I've got a credit card DLP rule for endpoint protection, which states that I cannot copy, paste, or share this this document. So let's try it anyway. I'll just take, let's do these two, for example, and I'll just go over here to a brand new Word document. Let's see if I can paste it over here. Well, no, I can't, because, well, my organization's policy won't allow me to do that. So, okay, I could close Excel for now, because you saw that it stated you need to close the sensitive file. Problem is, the cache will be cleared as well, so I don't have anything to really paste. So let me just try this in another application. I've got Microsoft Teams open over here. Let's say I'll start a new conversation, just trying to share it over here. Hi there. Oops. Can this be shared? And let me just paste it. No, sorry, it's opened and it's not allowed. Okay, so while it's open, so okay, let's just close it up over here. Let's try again here in Teams, and again it's not possible because, well, the sensitive file isn't there anymore. This also works for things like Notepad, of course, and well, this is basically from a user's perspective how those DLP alerts are shown. Okay, one of the things we really need to do in order to get our devices into the DLP endpoint protection is to add them to Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. There's two options for this. either you already have devices which are managed using Microsoft Defender ATP, then those already are onboarded to your environment and they will show up in your overview, or they're not, and then you have to onboard them using a little script or a specific script Microsoft provides to onboard your devices. If you don't have Microsoft Defender ATP, so there's no real problem, because the functionality required is included in the license I talked about earlier. Well, one of the things you need to do before we start looking at the DLP itself are the settings over here. Because when you enable the license, you will get a new setting in this compliance center, and that's device onboarding. And let's look at that, how it looks. Well, in my case, I only have one device, which was shown in the previous part of this video, and that's a Windows 10 device. That was already part of Windows Defender ATP, and as you see over here, it's being registered as well in the compliance center. So well, that's great. That means I can use my DLP policies for this device. If I need to onboard, like I said, I can use either a local script or any other of the options you see over here. It's really simple. The device will register itself to basically Windows Defender and or Microsoft Defender ATP, and is up and running. If you need to, you can also offboard your device over here. So that's one of the first things to do when we're going to look at Endpoint DLP. Okay, so let's take a look at how this looks like from an admin's perspective. First of all, the generic data loss prevention dashboard. This is the dashboard you probably already know. Here we have the policies which are in use for managing your data loss prevention. But there's other settings as well. For example, over here we have Endpoint DLP settings, and these might look familiar, especially if you were using things like Windows Information Protection. You will know some of the settings required on the device to really determine what can and cannot happen on that device with your sensitive data. So, for example, I can exclude specific file paths which should not be monitored by the policy. I can also add which apps are allowed, or in this case unallowed, from accessing specific information. And I can also set browser and domain restrictions, which means that only specific browsers, for example, are allowed to handle sensitive content on the device. I can also add specific service domains. So this can block access or allow access to safe domains if needed. Well, as you see, my settings are very basic. So without further ado, let's go to the policies, which basically handle the DLP. Let me just show you how that works with a specific one I created earlier. Okay, just for the sake of time, I've already opened up a policy right now. It's the policy you saw work on the device. It scans for sensitive content, in my case credit card information. So I've named this one credit card information, or credit card Windows 10, and let's see how that works. So first of all, one of the things you'll notice is that I've got all my sensitive information which was already part of Microsoft 365, but I now have the option to choose devices. And I've added those to 4 users in my environment. So this policy only acts on the devices, but as you can see, I can also choose other locations as well. So I've created one rule, one very easy rule, credit card information, and let's open that one up. Well, this is very recognizable from the existing DLP rules. I've got the sensitive information type. If I want to have sensitivity labels there as well, I can have those as well. So I can choose. I have my exceptions, etc. And over here we have finally the settings. And as you've noticed during the functional demo, I tried to copy things to a network share. I tried to copy things to the clipboard, which would well, enable me to copy things from Excel to Word, for example. That wasn't allowed. And you can see I have multiple options here as well. I can either, well, block them, or I can say, well, you can block them, but there's an override button. Or if I want to just audit the actions, I can have these set to audit only. So this is very, very simple, and as shown in the demo, it really works a treat on Windows 10. So of course I also have the other DLP options like user notifications, setting alerts, etc, etc, but I won't be showing them because I think you probably know those already. I can have multiple rules, which is also very standard DLP functionality. I've turned it on right away, and that's basically, in a nutshell, even with the little typo over here, how you can create such a policy. Okay, another example of data loss prevention in action is the ability to block file movements to, for example, USB devices or network shares. In my environment, in this little demo, I've got a virtual machine. It doesn't have an USB drive directly connected to it, but it does have an USB drive connected through my host computer, and that's the one you see over here. So for Windows 10 and Defender, this is going to show up as a network location. But network locations are included in the DLP as well, so let's take a look. First of all, let's try to just copy this Word document to the environment. Well, there's no problem there. It's a document which does not contain any information which is in my DLP policy. Now let's try the same with the credit card information, and you'll see that it's going to be blocked, and that's because of that DLP action. If I want to, I can review what the problem is, and I see that, okay, I tried to copy some information from the file to a clipboard, notepad, that was blocked. I also tried to copy it to a network share, or in my case, a connected USB drive, and that's well, that's blocked as well. So these actions will show up in my activity overview. So let's take a look at that as well. Okay, one last thing to show you, and that's any action which is performed on the device will be audited. Of course, you can block things with a justification to override it, but and you can audit the activities, but all activities are basically audited. So if we go, for example, here in data classification and to the activity explorer, you will notice that if I choose, and let's wait for it, oh, here over here we've got a lot of data classification activity, and one of the things is on my endpoint devices. So if I go over here, you'll see that well, you'll see the activities over here already: file created, modified, etc., file copied to a network share, and that's over here, that is the endpoint credit card document, which, as you can see over here, that was just a couple of minutes ago. Here I tried to copy it to my USB drive, or in which case, well, Microsoft 365 sees that as a network location, and that's being monitored as well. So I can see any information coming from the device based on the DLP rules and Microsoft information protection. So that is very cool stuff. Okay, well, there you have it. Microsoft Endpoint DLP for Windows 10 based on Microsoft 365. Again, just a couple of requirements for using this. First of all, the required licenses for Microsoft 365. In my case, I'm using the Microsoft 365 E5 compliance add-on to be able to use this. You will need to onboard your devices, and you can use the script for that, which is included in the onboarding procedure. Another thing you will need is that the devices which you're going to onboard need to be either Azure AD Hybrid joined or Azure AD joined. So that means that it's not a bring your own device type of scenario. You can still use Windows Information Protection for that, or mobile application management using Endpoint Manager. So that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.